Hi, this is Darren from Property Prosperity. I thought I'd have a little chat to you today about property developers. There's this perception in the world that property developers are all these greedy property developers that are out making, millions of dollars, and everyone's getting rich except for me. And so there's, I suppose a degree of jealousy and a degree of animosity towards property developers but in reality, a lot of people are seeing developments happening around the area. They're seeing people knock down houses and subdivide, and particularly all the where people are living. Generally, they're little small scale subdivisions from 1 into 2 or 1 into 3. Thanks for the like, I appreciate that. And so there's this perception out there that thanks for joining, Debbie, and thanks for the like. This perception that all developers are making money. So what I thought I'd do is let you give you a bit of an insight into the world of a property developer, and let you know that there's this perception of property developers that are all driving around in Ferraris and they're having fancy suits and they live in these massive mansions. But a lot of the development you see happening around your own house and where you live is just what I describe as mum and dad developers. Your average Joe that happened to buy a property maybe a long time ago, and they've looking at their options, they've decided to knock it down and subdivide, or they've seen other, they think, oh man, all these people are making money out of doing developments, I want to do it too. And generally I find everyone just has an interest in property, and they have an interest in property developing. And I just know from when I go to barbecues and out to dinner that everyone wants to have a bit of a chat to you because they're all interested in property development. So the first thing that people do wrong, I think, when it comes to property development is they think whether the most important thing is whether they can subdivide. And probably where I come in and where I help people out is I don't really, it's important whether you can subdivide or not, but really I don't care about that so much. I want to know whether you should subdivide. And the thing about whether you can subdivide, that's relatively easy to find out. You can go down the council and say, hey, Mr. Councilman, they're called a planner. You can say, hey, Mr. Planner, can I knock down and subdivide, and what's the minimum sizes I can subdivide? So let's imagine you've got a 700 square meter block, and you're going to knock down your house and subdivide it into 2, so they're going to be 350 square meter blocks. And if the minimum block size to subdivide is 300 square meters, that's fine. It fits within the minimum block size. And so in theory, that's a good deal. Let's go and knock your house down and subdivide. But what matters is not just whether you can subdivide, is whether you should subdivide. You've got to make sure you're going to be better off at the end than you are at the start. And trying to work that out, first you have to work out what your property's worth right now. A lot of people assume that, okay, well, I paid, $79,000, 40 years ago for it, so if I knock it down and subdivide, I'm going to make money. But in reality, it's not worth $79,000 the house, because that's what you paid 40 years ago for it. What it's worth is what it's worth right now. That's the market price. So that's the first point. You've got to start with a starting point. What is it worth right now? And then you've got somewhere to start from, because you don't have to develop it. You can just sell it as is and save yourself the hassle of developing it. So that's the first point. Okay, so what's it worth right now? So let's say we paid $79,000 for 40 years ago, but now it's suddenly worth $400,000. Okay, so we've got a starting point. So if we chose to sell it, it's worth 400 grand. Then we think about, okay, well, if we're going to subdivide it, what are we going to subdivide into 2? So let's imagine we're going to subdivide it into 2 blocks, and they're going to be 2 350 square meter blocks. And we know that 350 square meter block is worth around about $250,000. So we times that by 2, that's $500,000. So we know our property is worth $400,000. We subdivide it and it's going to be worth $500,000. But the thing is, you don't just end up with 2 blocks of land for no reason. You have to do something to make that happen. So you're going to have to knock down the house, and there's going to be costs associated with that. You're going to have to pay the subdivision costs. There are going to be costs associated with that. There might be other issues you have to deal with. You might have easements or trees or retaining walls or some sort of septic tank or some sort of weird quirk that's going to cost you more money to try and create these blocks so people can use them. And so we're going to make sure we're taking into account all these costs. So let's say, it's worth $400,000. Let's say it's 50 grand in cost to turn them into 2 blocks of land. So we spent 450 grand to end up with 2 blocks of land worth 500 grand. So in that example there, we've made 50 grand, which is a good thing. So there is costs associated on top of that. There's holding costs that, that you don't have the house anymore. So if you've got interest, you'll be paying interest. You might have to pay some tax on the other side of the coin too when you sell it. So these are all the things you've got to weigh into account. Is it really worth the hassle? Alternatively, we could say our property is worth 400,000, and then we know blocks of land, if we subdivide for 2 350 square meter blocks, they're worth $200,000 each, which is worth 400,000 too. So if we knock the house down and subdivide, it costs us 50 grand, but we end up with 2 blocks of land worth 200,000. We've actually lost $50,000 because of the cost associated with subdividing. So we're actually worse off. So even though we can subdivide and even though we can sell it, we've actually lost money. So this is the problem where a lot of mum and dad developers, people starting out, they make this assumption we're always going to make money, and so that if we just buy and knock it down and subdivide, we're going to be better off. In reality, you might not be better off. So again, that's where going through the details and understanding exactly the costs associated with developing a property and making sure you're going to be better off at the end is an important thing to do. I see all the time where people get a little bit excited when they buy a development site, or they don't take into account what the cost is, what the current value is of the property. And so you see them, they get halfway through, they get a bit stuck, they find there's an issue, there might not be water or gas or sewer or electricity, or something's causing a problem along the way, and then suddenly they don't have any money to get to the end. And with the thing with developing, you don't make any money until you get to the end. Until you've got those 2 subdivided blocks, then they're not valuable because you can't do anything with them. No one's going to buy it, no one can build a house on it and rent it out, you can't build a house on it and sell it or anything. So you're basically stuck. So if you get stuck in the middle and you halfway through the development, then probably no one's going to buy it off you. And to be honest, you're probably going to be worse off than if you did nothing. And so the only person that's going to buy it off you is going to be a developer like me. I'm going to come in, I know you're in trouble, and I'm going to come in and offer you a crazy low price. I come in and get a bargain, I spend the money and finish it off, and that's when I make all the money at the end. So that's the thing to understand with development. You only make money at the end. You don't make money halfway through. So if you get stuck halfway through, you get into a lot of trouble. So the key is to get all the information up front. So either decide to do the development or decide not to do the development. You want to make sure you don't get stuck halfway in through the middle and you get yourself into trouble. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. So like I said, the number one rule for doing a profitable development is you've got to make sure it's not whether you can subdivide, it's whether you should subdivide. And you've got to make sure that you're going to be better off at the end than you are at the start. So hopefully you found that interesting, and if you have liked what I've said, then click on the like button. If you haven't liked it, then click on the like button anyway, because I'd really appreciate it. And if you think someone's thinking about subdividing, or they're talking about, hey, I've got this property, it's a really cool development site and we're going to make all this money, perhaps if you want to click on the share button, I'm sure they might find this interesting. Hopefully they'll open their eyes to the process of developing. And if you've got something you'd like me to answer next time, then feel free to put a question in the comments box, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have in the future. And yeah, otherwise, if you've got something you've had the experience when you've done a subdivision and it hasn't worked out for you, or you've done a subdivision and you made some money, put it in the comments box too. I'm sure everyone will be interested in finding out about how it went for you. So thanks, guys. I look forward to talking to you again soon. Bye.